You are walking into a factory city in the 19th century. Before you see the buildings, you hear the signal. A sharp, piercing sound cuts through the air. A factory siren. It does not invite. It commands. This sound marks the beginning of the day. Around you, movement begins almost instantly. Doors open. Bodies emerge. The city responds. This is not a city that wakes gradually. It activates. As you continue walking, the source of the sound becomes clear. Large industrial buildings dominate the landscape. Long facades of brick and stone. Tall windows. Massive doors. These are not workshops. They are production spaces. Everything here is built to contain routine. As you step closer, you notice how the streets align with the factories. They lead toward them, away from them. Movement has direction. The city is organized around entrances and exits. Shift changes define traffic. People move with purpose, not curiosity. There is no wandering, no hesitation. This is a city that trains behavior through repetition. You walk alongside groups of workers heading toward the same gate. Men, women, children. Their pace is steady, learned. This walk happens every day, at the same hour, in the same way. Routine is visible in the body. As you pass a factory wall, the sound intensifies. Machines are already running. Steam escapes through valves. Metal rhythms echo inside. Work begins before the city fully awakens. Unlike older forms of labor, production does not wait for daylight. It creates its own time. You notice clocks mounted high on walls. Near gates. Above streets. Time here is public. External. Enforced. The factory does not adapt to people. People adapt to the factory. As you keep walking, you see housing packed tightly around the industrial core. Rows of identical homes. Built quickly. Built close. These neighborhoods exist for one reason: to supply labor. Distance is reduced. Efficiency is increased. Homes are not places of separation. They are extensions of the workday. The city does not end at the factory gate. It continues into kitchens, bedrooms, and streets. As you walk through these areas, the signs of routine are everywhere. Laundry hangs in predictable patterns. Meals are prepared quickly. Children move with purpose, carrying items, delivering messages. Everyone has a role. Everyone has a schedule. The factory routine spills into domestic life. You notice how little variation exists from house to house. Architecture repeats. Space is minimal. Function overrides comfort. This is not accidental. It is optimized. The city has been shaped to support the routine, not resist it. As you continue walking, the street fills again. Another siren sounds. A shift ends. Another begins. People flow in opposite directions. Entering. Exiting. The city breathes in cycles. You feel how these cycles define everything. When people eat. When they rest. When they move. Time no longer belongs to individuals. It belongs to the system. As you walk past a small shop, you notice how its hours align with factory schedules. Food prepared for quick consumption. Goods sold in narrow windows of time. Commerce adapts to routine. Social life adapts to routine. Nothing escapes it. As you move deeper into the city, the sense of discipline becomes clearer. Not enforced through violence. Through structure. People know where to be. When to be there. What happens if they are late? The consequences are understood. Routine becomes survival. You pass a group of children heading toward a factory entrance. Their movements mirror those of adults. There is no distinction in posture, only in size. Industrial routine does not recognize age, only availability. This is not a temporary arrangement. It is the system. As you continue walking, you begin to understand that this city is not defined by innovation or growth. It is defined by repetition. The same sounds, the same paths, the same motions, day after day, year after year. This repetition creates predictability, but it also creates constraint. The city feels stable, but rigid. As you walk, you realize something fundamental. You are not walking through a city that happens to contain factories. You are walking through a city that exists because of them. Everything else is secondary. This is life inside a factory city, and the routine has only just begun. As you continue walking through the factory city, the routine begins to feel unavoidable. This is not a background structure. It is the central force shaping life. The day here is not experienced as a whole. It is broken into segments. Before work, work, after work. Everything else fits in the margins. You walk past factory gates now fully open. The flow of bodies has stabilized. Inside, production is underway. Outside, the city adjusts. Streets grow quieter for a moment. Then they refill with those whose shifts differ. Night workers, maintenance crews, delivery labor. The city never empties. It rearranges. As you walk, you begin to notice how discipline is enforced without constant supervision. There are foremen, supervisors, timekeepers, but control does not rely on them alone. It is embedded in expectation. People arrive early, not because they are watched, because they must. A missed shift means lost wages. Repeated absence means dismissal. The factory does not need to threaten. The structure does the work. As you continue walking, you pass notice boards near factory entrances. Rules posted, penalties listed, schedules fixed. The language is formal, impersonal. Time here is contractual. You notice how workers move when the siren sounds again. Faster, more tightly grouped. No one wants to be last. Routine sharpens behavior. As you walk through nearby streets, you see how this discipline extends into domestic life. Meals are timed. Rest is measured. Sleep is compressed. Families organize themselves around factory hours. Conversation is shorter. Silence is functional. Energy is conserved. As you walk past a row of houses, you glimpse interiors through open doors. People preparing for rest. Others preparing to leave. Life overlaps. There is no shared rhythm across households. Only alignment with shifts. The factory fractures time even within families. As you continue walking, you notice how repetition affects perception. Days blur together. Weeks feel identical. People speak in terms of hours worked, not days lived. Time is counted, not felt. You pass a worker resting briefly on a doorstep. Not relaxing. Recovering. The body is treated as something to be maintained, not indulged. As you walk further, the sounds of machinery become a constant backdrop. Even when unseen, the factory extends beyond its walls. It occupies mental space. You realize that people carry work with them. In their posture, in their fatigue, in their anticipation of the next shift. This anticipation shapes behavior more than any rule. As you move deeper into the city, you pass an alley where workers gather briefly between shifts, eating quickly, sharing minimal conversation. Social life exists in fragments. There is little room for spontaneity. Routine does not eliminate choice. It narrows it. As you walk, you begin to understand how discipline becomes internal. People do not ask when they should rest. They ask how long they can. Limits are recalibrated. The factory city does not need walls. Its structure is enough. As you approach another industrial complex, you notice how entrances and exits are controlled. Gates open at fixed times. Close decisively. Movement is regulated. You feel how this reduces uncertainty and increases dependence. The routine promises predictability. In exchange, it demands submission. As you continue walking, you realize that this daily discipline produces stability. Wages are regular. Work is consistent. But this stability is narrow. Fragile. One injury. One missed shift. One machine failure. And the balance breaks. The routine does not protect. It maintains. As you walk past another notice board, you see the rules again. Absence. Tardiness. Fines. The city speaks through instructions. As you continue, the repetition becomes almost physical. Steps echo the same paths. Sounds repeat. Gestures recur. The city trains muscle memory. You are walking through a place where routine is not a habit. It is infrastructure. And everything that follows depends on it. As you continue walking through the factory city, you begin to see how deeply routine reaches into private life. Not just work. Family. The factory does not stop at the gate. It follows people home. You walk through narrow residential streets built close to the industrial core. Rows of small houses. Identical in shape. Different only in where. These homes exist to support labor. Nothing more. Inside them, daily life bends around the schedule of the factory. You pass open doors and windows. Brief glimpses of domestic scenes. Meals being prepared quickly. Clothes laid out for the next shift. Children moving through tight spaces with practiced familiarity. There is no clear boundary between home and work. Only a transition zone. As you walk, you notice how family members operate on different clocks. One returning from a night shift. Another preparing to leave for an early morning one. Sleep overlaps. Conversation fragments. The household does not share a single rhythm. It is segmented by the factory timetable. You begin to understand how this reshapes relationships. Time together is limited, planned, compressed. Parents and children see each other between shifts. Moments are short, functional. Affection exists, but it must fit into narrow windows. As you continue walking, you notice how children are integrated into this system. They are not shielded from routine. They are trained by it. Children wake early, run errands, carry food, deliver messages. Some head toward factories themselves. Others prepare to. Their movements mirror those of adults. Purposeful, direct. There is little space for play. Childhood is shortened not by cruelty, but by structure. The factory city does not ask when someone is ready. It asks when they are available. As you walk past a small schoolhouse or charity classroom, you notice its limited role. Education exists, but it is secondary. Attendance is irregular, interrupted by work. Learning must compete with wages. Families calculate constantly. Time versus income. Education versus survival. The routine forces decisions early. As you continue walking, you see how domestic labor adapts to industrial time. Cooking is efficient. Cleaning is minimal. Everything is organized to conserve energy. Fatigue shapes behavior. Homes are places of recovery, not expression. You notice how silence is valued here. Not as peace, as necessity. Rest must be protected. As you walk through a shared courtyard, you see women coordinating tasks, sharing resources, watching children. Community exists, but it is pragmatic, built around necessity. Support networks form because the system requires them. No one has excess capacity. Everyone relies on someone else. As you continue walking, the physical toll of this arrangement becomes visible. Adults move slowly outside of work. Children carry responsibility early. Generations blur. There is no extended adolescence here. Only preparation. You pass an older worker, sitting near a doorway. Too worn to continue. Too young to stop. Family becomes the safety net. There is no retirement system. No long-term protection. Survival extends across generations. As you walk, you begin to see how identity is shaped within this structure. People define themselves by role. Provider, helper, worker. Not by aspiration, by function. The factory routine assigns meaning through necessity. As you move farther through the neighborhood, evening approaches again. Some families gather briefly for a shared meal. Others miss each other entirely. The city does not synchronize private life. It fragments it. As you continue walking, one thing becomes clear. The factory city does not just organize labor. It reorganizes family. It compresses time, redefines childhood, reshapes care. Domestic life adapts because it must. And in doing so, it becomes another extension of the industrial system. As you continue walking through the factory city, another layer of life becomes visible. Not productivity, not routine, but endurance. This city runs on repetition, and repetition reshapes the inner life of those who live here. You walk past workers moving along familiar routes. Their steps follow paths learned over years. There is no hesitation. The body remembers what the mind no longer questions. Monotony is not experienced as boredom. It is experienced as weight. The same actions, the same hours, the same outcomes, day after day. As you walk, you begin to notice how people carry this repetition differently. Some move mechanically, eyes forward, expressions neutral. Others show signs of quiet resistance. Small gestures, lingering pauses, moments of stillness stolen from the schedule. These are not rebellions. They are adjustments, ways to survive without breaking. You pass a worker who stops briefly to look down an empty street. Not resting, just breathing. These moments are rare, but meaningful. As you continue walking, you notice how emotion is managed rather than expressed. There is little space for display. Strong feelings are costly. Anger risks dismissal. Despair risks collapse. People learn restraint early. Emotional control becomes another form of discipline. You walk past a notice of a workplace accident. Brief, formal, impersonal. Loss is recorded, then absorbed. The routine continues. Grief does not interrupt production. It is carried alongside it. As you move through the city, you sense how hope changes shape here. It is not expansive. It is narrow. People hope for continuity, for health, for wages to continue. Ambition becomes practical, survival-focused. As you walk, you hear fragments of conversation, short exchanges, muted voices. Talk centers on shifts, pay, rumors of changes. The future is discussed cautiously. Speculation feels dangerous. Uncertainty threatens stability. As you pass a tavern or communal space, you notice how people gather briefly. Not to celebrate, to release tension. Laughter is subdued. Drinking is functional. These spaces exist as pressure valves. The city allows limited release so that routine can resume. As you continue walking, you see signs of collective awareness. Workers glance at each other during shift changes. They notice patterns, changes in management, alterations in schedule. This awareness does not immediately lead to action, but it accumulates. Shared experience creates silent understanding. As you walk, you realize that resistance here is not loud. It is slow. It exists in mutual aid, in shared warnings, in unspoken agreements. The factory city suppresses disruption, but it cannot eliminate consciousness. As you continue walking, monotony begins to feel structural. The city is designed to minimize variation. Architecture repeats. Streets mirror each other. Schedules align. This uniformity reduces friction and individuality. You notice how creativity is redirected, not eliminated. People find expression in small things. Songs hummed quietly. Marks scratched into wood. Routines personalized at the margins. These are not escapes. They are adaptations. As you walk farther, evening approaches again. Fatigue deepens. Movement slow. The routine does not weaken. The body does. You see people preparing for another cycle. Laying out clothes. Setting alarms. Calculating sleep. Tomorrow is already present. As you continue walking, you understand something essential. The factory city does not just discipline bodies. It disciplines emotions. It teaches people how much to feel, and when not to. This creates resilience, but also numbness. Life continues. Families persist. Communities exist. But everything happens within narrow bounds. As you walk, you realize that this emotional economy is as important as the physical one. Without it, the system would fracture. The routine survives because people adapt internally, not because they agree, but because they endure. As you continue walking through the factory city, a final understanding settles in. This place is not just industrial. It is systemic. Everything you have seen, the routines, the homes, the bodies, the emotions, forms a single structure. The city is no longer a backdrop for life. It is an apparatus. Each part supports the others. Each routine reinforces the next. Work dictates time. Time dictates movement. Movement dictates daily life. Nothing here exists in isolation. You walk past a factory one last time. The gates open and close with precision. The sound of machines never fully fades. Production continues whether individuals thrive or not. The system does not pause for reflection. It only adjusts. As you move through the streets, you notice how completely this logic has reshaped space. Streets are corridors. Homes are recovery units. Public spaces are minimal and functional. The city has been reduced to roles. Worker, supervisor, child, dependent. Identity is assigned through necessity. As you continue walking, you realize how new this arrangement is. For centuries, cities were places of overlap. Work, worship, family, and leisure existed together. Here, they have been separated and ranked. Work dominates. Everything else fits around it. This separation makes the system efficient, but brittle. Any disruption travels quickly. A broken machine, a lost wage, an injury. The routine holds only as long as everything functions. As you walk, you sense how this fragility hides beneath apparent order. The city looks stable, predictable, controlled, but it depends on continuous compliance. The factory city cannot tolerate interruption. It must keep moving. You begin to understand why this form of urban life will spread. It produces output. It concentrates labor. It simplifies control. For governments and owners, it is powerful. For those living inside it, it is total. As you walk farther, the city begins to fade slightly at its edges. Less noise, less density, but the routine remains. Even beyond the factory walls, time is still industrial. Behavior still shaped. Expectations still narrow. The system extends beyond the city itself. It follows people wherever work defines life. You realize that what you are witnessing is not just a moment in history. It is a foundation. The factory city establishes patterns that will persist. Shift work, clock-based life, separation of labor and home. These ideas will outlast the buildings. As you continue walking, one final contrast becomes clear. This city does not grow through imagination. It grows through repetition. Innovation happens inside machines. Human life adapts around them. The routine is efficient, but it is not neutral. It reshapes how people experience time, how they form relationships, how they understand themselves. As you reach the edge of the city and look back, the outline is unmistakable. Factories at the center, housing radiating outward, infrastructure tying everything together. This is not chaos. It is design, a design that prioritizes output over experience. The factory city does not ask if this life is fulfilling. It asks if it is productive. And for much of the 19th century, that question is enough. You are walking through a world where routine defines reality, where discipline replaces tradition, where endurance replaces mastery. This is life inside a factory city. Not temporary, not accidental, but intentional. And its legacy will shape urban life long after the machines themselves change.